Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Footmarks. I'm Varun, and this is Jarrod with me. So, Jarrod, after yesterday's game, both of us basically had the same thought is there will be a bunch of fans going, if this is what we're going to watch, we might as well see Babar and Rizwan back. And I'll be honest, Jarrod, that thought crossed my mind as well for a brief second. I'm like, if I have to suffer someone being 30 of 30, it might as well be Mohammad Rizwan and then accelerated at the death. Because it's like, it's not something that's their, what do you call it? That's their bread and butter. That's their natural habitats. That's their natural state. That's their homeostasis, right? It's being 30 of 30 and then just accelerating and then start batting. If I have to suffer through that, it might as well be both of them.
It's funny because I obviously had the piece written beforehand, unless anyone thought I wrote a 3,000 word article in an hour and a half, which I suppose I have before, so it is possible, but I did not. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do a rewrite. And then I went back and I looked at it and I was like, actually, it's kind of already here. The only thing, there was just like one little paragraph missing about the sort of bringing it all together of everything, which is they were already losing before. Like, I think you could make an argument that when they had a shit hot bowling attack and they had Rizwan and Babar, it probably made sense to have the two guys just facing 50% of the balls of the game and then you trying to bowl the opposition out for less than par. But once Shaheen did his knee in 2022 or whenever it was, since that point forward, that theory has never worked. So they've done it over and over again. But you can also see why in a game like this, when they collapse, the fans are just like, well, maybe the best option is to have our best batters in and see how we go. Like, you can understand that argument. But there's also an argument for you can't win when you pick them, and you can't pick you can't win when you don't pick them, right? Like, that's also true. So I think it's a really confusing issue, the Babar Rizwan one.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing about both of them, right? Because I think all of us acknowledge they had to move on from them. But then it's like we're at a weird point where they're like, well, do they go back to them after what I just witnessed yesterday?
Yeah.
Because we were talking about this, I think, on the Sanjay pod as well. It's like, even though like we value intent, there are times where you need some red ball skills to go back to during against good bowlers or in tough conditions. And we saw bits of both yesterday. And almost no one in that Pakistan team has any semblance of red ball skills, let alone good red ball skills in this team. So it's like, so they're either at a point right now where all their red ball batters, even Salman Ali Aga, they can handle the quality bowlers to a certain extent, but they can't hit to save their lives. And all the hitters have no red ball skills. It's a weird position they're in.
Yeah, and I think some of this has to be that Pakistan really, in modern cricket, just haven't come up with anyone who can play modern cricket, have they? They've either had, Misbah ul Haq or they have Shahid Afridi. And that sounds like a one-liner, but if you look at the data, it's kind of true. They just don't have sort of normal T20 players. They don't have anyone in between. And so they don't go anywhere. And as you said, the quality is a really important thing. They can find batters with quality, but they can't play T20 cricket. And they can find T20 players who can hit, but they can't handle when the quality is needed, right? You and I can make all the jokes we want about Kane Williamson as a T20 player, right? But we also understand why franchises sometimes hire him. And it's because in really crucial knockout games, if Trent bolts on one, you kind of want Kane Williamson in the side, right? You want him to go up against Varun Chakravarti or whoever it may be. But at the same time, 80% of the rest of the games, you don't need those guys, right? Like they're absolutely superfluous. And Pakistan had two of them, and yesterday, if they had two of them, they probably make more than 127. They might still lose the game, though, Varun.
Yeah, they might have been 150 for 4 instead of 127 for 9. But they still have lost comfortably in the end,
yes.
Right? So we'll just look at Babar's true strike rate to start this off, Jarrod. He's got, I think, like what I'd call an anchor's record, where I'm like, okay, it makes sense to me. So he's like, there's some years where he's slightly negative, and there's some years where he's positive, and overall he's almost a power true strike rate in a way, right? Across all T20s. He's like a neutral true strike rate batter. He's the definition of an anchor to me.
Yeah. And one of the things with true strike rate is that they don't, the kind of, when you have a look at it at the end of a year, and KL Raul's average like 45, right, with a strike rate of like 150, everyone's like, look at his overall numbers. But the reason that true strike rate is so much more illustrative of what a player's worth is, you and I both know that there's a long period of time where he'll bat slowly and then he'll get really quick towards the end. So his overall strike rate will look good. But even in the years where his overall strike rate looks good, his actual true strike rate quite often isn't that high, right? So you are literally seeing why there is not a big boom in any of those years, even the ones where he made runs. So he has a slight plus, whereas as you've got on the screen now, Rizwan's true strike rate is pathetic. It's always under. It's remarkably bad no matter what he does. And so Rizwan doesn't even seem to have the ability to do the catch-up strike rate, right?
Yeah, so I think he can catch up. The issue is he's so bad for like the 16 overs of the game. He almost would need to become like a cricket 24 style, hit every ball for a six to have any semblance of a positive true strike rate.
Yeah,
right?
he catches up, but he's like the horse that goes 40 lengths behind, and then he can run 30 lengths faster than all the other horses, but it doesn't matter because there's still like 10 more lengths that he needs to do. Like he's coming home like a freight train, and he's still miles behind.
Yeah. Again, he's so bad. I didn't realize it was this bad. I knew it was bad, but then I was like, okay. I was like, how are you this bad, man? So this is just, we're looking at a scatter plot, and I think it kind of is where I'd imagine it to be, where both of them have incredible years where the true average is insanely high, right? And we expect that from both of them.
It's very rare for them to have a negative true average, isn't it?
In fact, I think we have both of them for Rizwan, and Bailey faces any balls in both of them, right?
So they've always been above average at staying in.
Yeah.
And
neither of us would deny that.
Yeah.
But they are horrible at striking.
Yeah. And they
completely bad.
They really don't have many huge plus years at striking, do they? They just don't have that sort of incredible boom. And if you look at the one that you've got on the top right-hand corner there, that's Babar, isn't it?
No, the orange is Rizwan.
Oh, yeah, Rizwan. So there's 1 year where Rizwan averages just an obscene amount. That was the period where no one could get him out, right? So 2021 Rizwan, even then, when you can't get him out at all, he's still only a plus 10 on strike rate. So it's not as if that's the year where he catches up. He just goes slightly above strike. There's no years where either of them are like plus 15, plus 20, plus 25. They've just never had that gear within them.
Yeah, also we just want to say that like a true strike rate of 10, like across a whole career is very different in a single year.
Yeah.
Because in a single year, you'll accidentally end up having a true strike rate of 20, 25 without much difficulty. We see that from everyone.
Well, except for these two.
Except for these two. It's
actually, if you think about it, it's harder for them to have an outlier season when it comes to something like true strike rate or even normal strike rate because they face so many balls. Because like in a game, they are doing things that just normal human beings are not doing, right?
Mm-hmm. So Jarrod, so context to the slide I have up here on our YouTube, on the video we did on these two, someone said that, okay, so all the roads in the PSL are actually propping up the true strike rate. So I replied back to them, I'm like, it should be the other way around, because if they're playing on roads, it should be harder for the true strike rate to be improved because everyone else is scoring quickly.
Yeah.
So I was like, the T20 international record saves the franchise record, not the other way around. So then I went and looked at the numbers. And to my surprise, it's actually not that difference between both of them. Because when I said that, I was expecting them to be quicker, but they're not. Babar is actually slower in the PSL. How the hell are you slower on those roads than in international cricket? And
I think that tells you everything. But also, like you look at Rizwan, and again, there's not that much difference between 129 and 125. There's that tells me that it's not about the pitches, right? That it's literally about them and their temperament more than anything else. That they are not going out of their way to smash the ball in any format, because at the very least, shouldn't they both be striking way quicker in the PSL just because it's crapper bowling?
Yeah, so I think both of them have a couple of years where they're like 145. I think even that's so low. So this is their true strike rate in the PSL and T20. As I said, the T20 internationals are saving the overall record, not the PSL. Both of them are negative in terms of true strike rate. It's insane.
I mean, if they weren't Babar and Rizwan and they didn't have their reputation as all format batters and everything, they just wouldn't have been picked in T20 cricket, would they?
No, definitely not. So I think it was Bahram who was saying, is looking at Rizwan's recent form. He's like, forget Pakistan's team. It's like, with his recent form, he shouldn't have a Multan Sultan's contract either. And he's kind of got a point there.
Yeah, I mean, there's some incredible stats with him. I think one of the ones we found was that when we looked at the impact metrics this year, we had him he's averaging over 50 in T20 cricket this year. And yet his impact is still a slight negative. Like, that's almost impossible to do, because when you're making that many runs, you should at least make up for the fact that you're going slow, and yet he's just not.
It's insane. Like again, it's so Babar again and is a plus true striker of 6 in T20 internationals and -3 in the PSL. That's a big differential. At
Yeah.
least with Rizwan, there's like the difference between internationals and PSL isn't as high as it's with Babar.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. As I said, it has to be a temperament thing because there's no reason for you to be slower in this format of cricket.
So here's the thing, Jarrod. At least in Rizwan's case, I don't know if you follow the PSL much. He plays for Multan Sultans. They're a bit similar to Pakistan in the sense they usually like bowling. So they're more balanced in that sense. They have hitters. So Baba plays for Peshawar Zalbi, which is basically almost like 2017 to 2019 RCB, where they have no bowling.
Yep.
They have no batting depth. So they basically need to make above par every game, and he's still batting slowly for them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If one team doesn't have any batting, and you're in a situation where you're still below par, and the other team is all about setting up the situation so they can make as many runs as possible, and you're still below par. Like there's no outs for them here. Is that they should be dominating this level of cricket? The truth is they should just be dominating this level of cricket, and they're not. And so when they get to international cricket, why are we suddenly expecting them to take this huge step up? There is a small step up. I mean, well done to both of them for doing that, but not enough to make any normal difference to who they are as players.
Yeah, so the other thing we were obsessed with is their ability versus spin. So again, I looked at PSL versus T20Is. Both of them are worse versus spin in the PSL, Jarrod. I've seen the quality of spin in the PSL. It is not very good. Like, if you told me that both of them could not hit spinners on a ranked turner on Tuesday in Mirpur, I'd understand you. I'll give them that benefit of the fair enough. Like, they can't hit Kuldeep and Varun Chakravarti. Fair. I'll give them. How the hell are you not hitting the PSL spinners? Like, Mohammad Haris has no ability versus spin, and he bashes PSL spin. Right? It's like, how are you so bad versus PSL spin?
And again, this is intent. They're not doing this by accident, right? Because there's, I talked to Robbie on the podcast today. You watch them play, and there is not a single person in the world that would say they are not exceptional players of spin, right? And yet, we watch them play. The amount of times I will watch one of these guys face a ordinary spinner, forget the good spinners, but just an ordinary spinner, and get like a back of a length ball that Heinrich Klaasen is hitting for 6. And these guys are tapping the ball on the leg side for 1. And they were never intending to do anything more than that shot. That was what they had planned before the ball was bowled, right? And you look at that and you just go, well, how are you, if this is what you're best at, what is the point of going at a strike rate of 112 or 118 against these kinds of bowling? And you look at these true strike rates, they're -8 and -10. So what is the point in chewing up 40 balls of spin between them in a game if they're going to be minus against it? Like, how does that help their team?
So we do have to acknowledge that T20 international strike rates are still quite a fair bit lower than, I think, franchise strike rates. For example, so I do think you have some leeway there. So that's partly why the true values don't look horrible in T20 internationals, right?
Yep.
They don't have that in the PSL. So it's like, and that's where you should be experimenting, right? The question I have is, who's having that conversation with both of them? Like, who in the Pakistan analyst ecosystem is sitting both of them down and going, look, you guys clearly are not uncomfortable versus spin here. Right? Especially not, you should, like, even wrist spin, fair enough, maybe you don't pick it, but finger spin, you shouldn't have any issues. All we need you to do is have one boundary option every 6 balls regularly. And there's no reason either of them aren't skilled enough to do that.
Yeah, I actually think, you might have the numbers there, but I'm actually pretty sure that they're better against wrist spin than they are against finger spin. So they can't even use that we're not picking it side of things, right? Like, they are literally picking it, finger spin really, really well, and they're not doing it. So I think this comes back to, do you remember we made the big video about Babar Azam? And we talked about the technical issues that he had, and we know that video eventually got through to him and everything. But one of the things we said in the video was, who does he turn to? Right? Yeah. How many head coaches has Pakistan had in the last 3 years? Robbie said 6 on the show before. He might be right. I can't even think of them all, but it probably is around 6 if you put them up. So let's say Mike Hessen has a conversation with Babar Azam, right? And says, all right, we want you to do this, this, and this. Is Babar going to listen to him, or is he going to think, well, he's going to be out of it? So I'm going to completely change my game and do exactly what he wants, knowing that in 3 months' time, he won't have a job anyway. So there is an element of like, they're trapped, I think, in this situation of really not knowing. Now, the other side of this is to say, if you were doing an independent, and like, these are not small players. These are players who have made lots of money from cricket, who are big stars. They should have, at any stage, Varun, gone and found their own analysts, right? Found people they trust, coaches, analysts, whoever they may be, and be like, let's pick my game apart. They've had their own chance. But within Pakistan, you do understand the issue that is coming up here. And the issue at the moment is really, really obvious. And it's that neither of these guys feel comfortable probably talking to anyone, because it doesn't matter, because that person's going to get shit canned in 5 minutes' time anyway.
Yeah, so because if we were talking to Babar and Rizwan, we know both of them are elite versus finger spin, right? At least it's staying in versus finger spin. So Rizwan averages close to 60 and Babar is close to 40. And both of them have a strike rate of about 112. So that's just below 7 runs per over. That's horrible, right? That's not good in anything. T20 internationals, PSL, nothing, right? You could easily make an argument that Rizwan could, let's say, sacrifice 25 runs of his average, maybe gets a 25 runs boost on his strike rate. He'd be a much more useful player. We're not saying they need to be elite hitters of spin.
No.
You have to be competent. Just be competent, because they have other elite skills they can exploit.
Also, this is the thing. If you watch them play, because they don't put any pressure back on the spinners, right? The spinner is actually bowling better to them than they would to anyone else in world cricket, because they're not worried about Babar and Rizwan coming down the wicket and lofting them over their heads, right? As long as the spinner doesn't bowl a rank ball, neither of those guys is going to take a chance against them, right? And so even if you're talking about dropping 20 runs off his average, right? Which is, again, very fair. But he doesn't, I don't even think he has to drop that much off his average. All he has to really do is go, okay, once and over, we look for a boundary option. Right? So what's our boundary option of this guy? Okay, for me, it's over cover. For me, it's over square leg. For me, I can sweep a little bit finer, or I can reverse sweep, whatever it is. If you added that, they probably wouldn't, neither of them would lose that much off their batting average against finger spin, but there'd be a huge impact in the bowling, because now you're going up against two of the world's best players of spin who are coming for you. That's a completely different world. And this is the same argument we have with Virat Kohli, who doesn't strike that much higher against finger spin than these two guys do. He's only at about 118, 120, right? And it's a perfect example against him of, Virat, we know you can use your feet and come down the wicket if you want to. And when you do that, you are very likely to hit the ball straight back over the bowler's head for 4, or you can hit a 6 over long on. You have that ability in you. What's the point of averaging 50 against finger spin if you're doing it at a strike rate that doesn't help your team, when you could put a little bit more pressure back? Now you're bowling to Virat Kohli and he's just used his feet to you. I don't care who you are as a finger spinner. That completely changes the game for you as a bowler at that point. And this is the issue, that they are not putting any pressure back on. And so people are just going, dart, dart, dart. Oh, he's played one back cut and he's got a couple of runs off me. All right, well, I can go with that again. Dart. Like, it's too easy. It's too easy for the spinners. And you could get a much worse batter who would be able to do that. They're doing the roles of what should be the guy who's not very good against spin. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you want to be part of the community that makes content like this, head over now. My latest book is The Art of Batting. It delves deep into how the best players ever made their runs. Get your copy today.
So you've worked with Shan Masood quite a lot, right? So with Shan, I do think he's probably way more limited than Babar and Rizwan. Him striking at 115, 120, I can kind of understand to a certain extent. Both of these two are better than him, right? They should be looking at have higher ambitions. I was also just about to actually bring the Virat Kohli comparison, by the way. Before fans get upset, we're not saying both of them are as good as him, but it's almost impossible not to bring up Virat when we're talking about anchors, right?
It's really interesting, because you sent
talking
me the
about
nearest neighbor
test
thing.
batting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so it would just be like talking about test batting and not mentioning Bradman in a way.
Yeah.
You have to talk about Virat in this.
And when you did the nearest neighbor, they weren't that far away from him. I didn't put it in the piece just because I didn't think the piece needed it in the end. And there were other guys as well that, that we could talk about, Carroll and Devon Conway. There was a few other players there. But the point being, I think, more than anything, is that Virat still has the power play, right? So if you know that Virat is, what frustrates us about Virat's T20 batting is we know he can score quicker against spin, and he's purposely slowing down, but he is slowing down from a decent clip, right? Maybe not the clip we think he should be scoring at, but certainly at a good clip. These two aren't hitting the spin overs with any huge strike rates, are they? They're not going crazy at the top of the game. And so not only are they underperforming against the spin when it comes to strike rate, they're not smashing the seam before that and making a big difference either. And so they're doubling down on their position before you factor in there's two of them. So they're like quadrupling down on this anchor plan all the way through until the 14th over for Babar and maybe the 16th over for Rizwan. Like, they wait so long before they, get out the big guns, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so they like to be mega set, right? So with Virat, again, going back to his example, so I believe in 2023 and like first half of 2024, his strike rate versus spin is about 110, 115. He then purposefully ups it to about 135 to 140, right? And he gets out more frequently, and he also ups his power play strike rate in the same period. That's all we asked of him, right? It's like, be competent versus spin, take advantage of the power play. And to me, this year, what Virat did is kind of what I want all anchors to do. Where in the first innings, if you look at him, he was very high in turn. He was like, I'll get 40 of 21, 22. And then if I get out, so be it. And then when he's chasing, he's the Virat we know. He's like, I'll be 70 or 48, and I will shake hands and I'll win this game for us. Yeah. Right? To me, that's the future of anchors, because even both of us, we had criticisms of Virat in T20 cricket. We never questioned his chasing, right?
No,
That's
exactly.
Even Babar and Rizwan, they're probably not on this Virat's level, but they're still elite at chasing, right? They had a 200-run partnership versus England, right, in 19.3 overs, which I remember looking this up. It was one of the most algorithmically perfect 200-run chases I've ever seen in my life.
Ridiculous, isn't it? And I remember, I think I watched that game, or I certainly saw the replay not long after, and it was just the control that they showed. But then I remember thinking, what if it was 220? Right? Did they chase 220? And that's the other issue of when you bat so within yourself, right? You create like an artificial glass ceiling to what you could score. And so there are situations where Pakistan is scoring 20 runs fewer than what they should because they're making sure that they get close to that par score. 20 runs under par means you put a lot of pressure on your bowlers. And when they had good bowlers, that was very different. So, look, you and I both have issues with anchors, but one of the reasons I know anchors work so well is because of chasing. Yeah, because it really does allow you to control the game a little bit better when you're chasing than just going out there and playing normally. So I fundamentally, I play with a guy at my club. We were in a chase this year, and it was a similar kind of thing of just like, he was batting really slow, and I was just like, well, that's fine. He's not going to go out though, so I can play some shots, get us ahead of the rate. And then if I go out, he'll just continue to go at the same speed. We're going to have time. Like, they do allow you a certain freedom, even if my average is impacted and he's gone on to get the not out 40 and I haven't got the win. It doesn't matter. We won the game. So I understand that idea, but I also understand that it's very hard for an anchor to help you once, especially with what's happening in modern T20 cricket. Once you're getting to 220, 240, 260, 280 scores, it's like, well, how does that player help you? And if you've got two of them, you're in a different situation. And the way I went into this piece is, I'm not really worried about the Asia Cup specifically. I'm worried about if Pakistan are going to win a trophy, they have to beat India, South Africa, Australia, maybe England, right? And you can throw West Indies in there as well. These teams score so much quicker than Pakistan, right? And Pakistan is no longer the great bowling team that can just choke people up and take wickets whenever they need to. So I don't see how that style is working for them. And as you said, when Virat, it might have taken Virat longer to evolve than we wanted to. But I would say, looking at this data, there is no sign of evolution at all from Babar Azam or Mohammad Rizwan. Like, Mohammad Rizwan's having a shocking year this year while averaging 55 or 52. Might have come down to 52. He's in the CPL at the moment. How is that even possible?
Man, Mohammad Rizwan's PSL was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen with my own two eyes. Like, that's where I swear to God, Jarrod, he was 32 of 32 every game, and then he would just slog at the death.
Yeah.
It was so weird. Like it's like I'm like, why didn't you just do that sooner? Like there's an I understand that like if you're set and the bowling plans are different at the dead, it's easier for you to attack. I acknowledge it, but it's like, are you telling me that if you're striking at 275 at the dead, you couldn't do it 150 in the power play?
So I'll tell you this. This is quite interesting. So I remember talking to Brad Hodge about his style, and I said, I watched you play quite a lot. Obviously, you played for Victoria, and then went on to play for every Big Bash team and played county cricket and everywhere else. So I watched Brad Hodge play a lot from a kid all the way through. And now I'm getting a chance to sit with him at the bar and talk to him. I said, this is what I saw. You would get to 20 off 20, right? And then you would basically try and hit 30 runs off the next 10 balls. And he's like, yeah, 10 or 15. He goes, that gets me to 50 off 35, which in that period of time was a good strike rate. I look good because I've got lots of runs, but I'm also in complete control of the game. And if we're chasing, obviously I might start a little bit earlier, or if we're chasing a smaller total, I don't have to go as heavy on, between the 20 and the 35 ball mark, right? Brad Hodge hasn't played professional T20 cricket, Varun, since what, 2017, 2016, right? That means that Rizwan's career started at the end of that, and he's starting later. Like I'm saying, Brad Hodge is attacking at the 20 ball mark, and Rizwan, you're saying he's attacking at the 30 ball mark. So he is playing T20 cricket from like the early 2000s. Actually, that's unfair because I actually played it much more attacking in the early 2000s. There's some great old, blast scorecards out there.
Shout out to Andrew Simons.
I was about to say the same thing. I don't want to put no disrespect on Andrew Simons' name. Who was the other guy that we found? Graham Hick. My God, Graham Hick was like a T20 dynamo. So you're looking at this and you are thinking to yourself, he is playing a form of cricket that you could argue was out of date when he started his T20 cricket career. And the game has evolved while he has been playing it. That's what I don't understand about these guys is there no point of professional pride where Lendl Simmons, a couple of years ago, started hitting out because he stopped getting contracts and he was like, oh, okay. Shikhar Dhawan did the same thing. Why are these two not being able
Shai
to
Hope.
Shai Hope! Oh, the great one.
He's
Shai
one of the
Hope.
highest strike rates in the last 2 years in T20 internationals as an opener. It's insane.
Right. So these are all players who, and Robbie was talking about selfishness and everything. It's like, lots of batters are selfish, right? But these guys aren't even being selfish in a way that makes any sense. Because as you said, Rizwan might be lucky to get a PSL contract going ahead, right? Like, how is it a player of that talent in that country might end up being in a position where he even someone like Bayram can make that comment? How can you say, I'm just looking at the numbers here, 23-24 PSL. My memory of this, and you'll remember more, was that was a hugely high-scoring, fast-scoring tournament, right? He averaged 34, so good average, but not crazy high for an anchor, but good plus average, at a strike rate of 122. 122. How do you even do that? I just don't understand these sorts of things of it, and how do you not look at that and go, I'm on the wrong end of this. I'm on the wrong end.
Yeah. It's insane, Jarrod. It's crazy. Like they just confuse me at times, both of them. I think with Babar, I will give him this. I remember a brief period where he tried to improve. I think there was the New Zealand series last year where he was actually trying to be more proactive. But the moment the T20 World Cup happened, that just went away. He just went back to his old anchor face, right?
Yeah,
and why?
And I'm okay with that because that was a low-scoring World Cup, and he probably doesn't that remind you a little bit of what India did in Australia for that World Cup, which I know they still deny happened, but they got there. The wickets were a little bit more friendly than they thought. They were like, whoa, we can't play like we planned. And they end up getting bounced out by England when they should have played exactly how they had planned, right? Especially on that wicket. So I think you could make a pretty solid argument that a similar thing happened to Babar. But don't you think that it has to be more than like a one-off anyway by this point? Like, it can't just be a situation where we can't give them the benefit of the doubt if he did it for like one bilateral series against New Zealand, right? Like with Virat, we had what? One World Cup, one World Cup, a bunch of bilaterals, and the RCB season where he started to do it as well. Like, I'll give someone if he went back to being defensive at the end of that, I'd be like, Fair play, everyone. Man gave it a chance. He really did. And then, he's gone back. Whereas Babar was like, no.
So, like, I think we can make an argument that with every batter, there's like, I almost want to say there's like a set strike rate range where they're comfortable in, right? Where for most batters, it's probably between 50 and 150, I'd like to say. Because even in Test cricket, we see most batters don't like being not of 20. They get very uncomfortable when they're there. They'll do stupid stuff, right? So with Babar, that's the way I feel about him. He's probably somewhere between 150 and 150. And then in T20 cricket, he needs to do everything he possibly can to be close to that, right? Same thing with Mohammad Rizwan. And we just talked about one way he could do it would be just add a boundary option versus spin. That's all you need. So I remember looking this up once. I think versus spin, if you hit a boundary every 6 balls, you can score at 8.5 runs per over.
Yeah.
That's more than enough for both of them.
Yeah.
More than acceptable.
Because they're still going to average over 35 if they're doing that, right? Yeah. What we're not expecting them to be is to be people who suddenly have a strike rate of 155 or 170 or something like that, right? What we are expecting them to be is there aren't that many players in the entire, and that was like, you might remember this. In the period I looked at, or in the period you looked at, did they have the highest and second highest batting averages against spin, or was it something else? I can't remember. But they're in the top.
Was it second and fourth?
Second and fourth. So we know that they are elite players of spin. What benefit does it give your side if they're elite players against spin and they're striking out at really slow? So you could make the opposite case too. And I remember this about Glenn Maxwell. There was a period in Glenn Maxwell's life where he would try and hit every ball from off spinners for 6, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, go back to your man Andrew Simons. He had a similar kind of thing. It's like, well, that also doesn't help, right? That's a pinch hitter's role. We don't want you to hit every single ball for 6. What we want you to be able to do is wait for the balls to be in the area you want them to be in, and then hit a 6. And then if the next one's in the same slot, go again. And if the next one's in another slot, you have a spot, go for it. What we don't want is when they bowl a really good ball, you're still trying to hit them for 6. Or if they bowl in an area that you're not used to trying to hit them, right? Like, you have to be a bit more sensible with that. It's exactly the same if you've got a high average against someone. You should be thinking about this exactly the same way, which is, if I average, wasn't there one year that Babar averaged over 100 against spin?
Yeah,
right? And still wasn't striking all that. Well, how does that help the team? I just don't. Mm-hmm. That's not how this game is played, right? It can't just be. I know it's hard because we don't have a catch-all number, but it can't just be all average and it can't just be all strike rate. If you've got a strike rate of 300 and you average 8, you're still not that handy a player. Right? Like, we can use you, but you're not that handy a player, right? You're going to face like 3 balls a game. We have to work out the whole rest of the game. The other 117 balls still need to be factored in. So that seems to be what is not happening here. But at the same time, let's just talk about the other great factor about this is that when they play in a game together, Pakistan get bowled out about 12% of the time. When they don't play in the game together, it's almost double. It's up at like 21, 22%, something like that, right? So this comes back to our original point, that they only create Misbah-ul-Haq or Shahid Afridi and nothing else. Because you shouldn't have, if you take those 2 players out, it shouldn't have that big an effect on how often you're bowled out.
Yeah, so I have a question for you are they creating Shahid Afridi style players because they have so many Misbah-ul-Haqs? So if Babar and Rizwan face about, I don't know, 10 overs a game, are you not ultimately forcing a bunch of high true strike rate, low true average batters to develop? Because there's no way you can be a normal batter in that case, right? And
it's interesting.
That's the way I feel about it.
If you go back to the 90s, which I think you have to if you're mentioning Misbah and Shahid Afridi, just because of ages. If you go back to the 90s, Syed Anwar was one of the first really quick openers, right? Mm-hmm. And Inzi was a force of nature when he first came into that ODI side. Like, you go back in the 92 World Cup, some of those innings are ridiculous. From then on in, do they have another attacking player? Right?
I actually don't think Inzi is very attacking.
No, he's not. That's what I'm saying. After that,
he's never attacking.
Yeah. He's basically. So we know that he could attack, and we know that Syed Anwar could attack, right? And if we had Usman or Bayram or someone like that on the podcast, they'd probably come up with 1 or 2 other names. But there isn't a history.
I think is someone they like.
You and I have seen Javed Miandad's numbers, right? Yeah. And I know he was a genius, but he doesn't pop on strike rate or true strike rate, does he? or not true strike rate in his case, his Zulu numbers, right? So again, that was a man who could hit as many boundaries as he wanted in an over and didn't. So you have to suggest that this is something within Pakistan cricket. There aren't many, I'm trying to think of a good player. There aren't many sort of Joe Root or Ricky Ponting type players that come out. And I'm not talking about the quality of the player, but I'm talking about the ability to strike at above the rate, just marginally above the rate, and also make good totals of runs. There aren't many of those kinds of players that have ever come out of Pakistan. They are Misbah with the occasional Afridi, right? Like, you know, and so you would have to suggest that that is something about the way that they think about limited overs cricket and everything else. And how much of that is also, to come back on the original conversation, when you have Wasim and Waqar and Sucklane and Mushtaq and Imran, and Wahab Riaz and whoever else, just line all these Umar Gul, all these wicket-taking bowlers up. Maybe you just look at it and go, we have to score at par. What I would say is, I think if you look at the domestic level, they're also doing it. So I don't think it is just a thing that happens in international cricket. I think there is something within Pakistan cricket that, and Australian cricket and India cricket has had similar kinds of things before. And England obviously had it massively. Sometimes you just get stuck in a bit of a rut of this is how you play white ball cricket, where it's like, okay, but have you turned on a TV to watch anyone else?
So interestingly, on the mindset thing in Pakistan, I think Saurabh was pointing this out in one of the third innings, where when Saim Ayub got out cheaply, Wasim Akram on the comms was saying maybe Saim should go back and be a bit more cautious when he's initially playing and then attack. I'm like, is that not the entire issue with Pakistan and what we're being critical of them about?
Yeah.
So can you blame Babar and Rizwan for batting the way they do when all the former cricketers, all the fans are going back to the same thing of you got to be sensible, you got to bat properly initially.
And exactly,
like, and we talked about this in the bad shot, right? What you shouldn't do with Saim Ayub is tell him to bat slower, tell him why he attacked badly, tell him how he can attack better, right? Well, that's what you should be doing.
I think what they should be doing with Saim Ayub is not using him as an opener, but that's a different conversation.
That's a different conversation.
But yes, no, I agree. And so you're right. He's been sent to the top of the order to attack. I'm trying to remember back. That was just a length ball outside off stump that he hit straight to point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is that the one he went? Is it? What's he supposed to do in that situation? Leave it?
Slap it. Yeah, yes, he's meant to.
It wasn't a good ball.
The problem is he didn't attack it. He was a very half-hearted shot. So you can tell he's confused. He doesn't know what to do when he's out there.
And look, you can make an argument that he's not fully developed as a player yet, and you know this blah blah blah. You know, I think you can make all of that, which is very very fair. I don't think that works. And again, you know, that does come back to it. To be fair to Wasim Akram here, wouldn't they say that? Wouldn't every former player almost in the world say that anyway? Like I don't think that's a particularly Pakistan thing to say. But your overall point is very fair. And it's the same as if I think we both believe that if Babar and Rizwan were in this game, they still probably would have scored under par and they still would have been beaten quite easily. But maybe they wouldn't have been embarrassed. But maybe the way they're playing now allows them to beat the other good sides because they can put on 180, 190, 210, 220 scores, you know, above par scores regularly. So I can definitely understand, you know, why people would be saying Babar and Rizwan need to come back. And I'm not, this is how I feel about it. I'd be interested to know how you feel about it. I'm not against them coming back, but they have to show that they understand what the issue is. And looking at their data, I'm not sure that they understand what the issue is.
Yeah, so Hassan, I think when he was asked about it, he was like, well, yeah, of course there are not plans. They're very talented. Like he's talking about Babar. It's like, that's how he's doing the right thing, right? He's not completely abandoned them, but he's also right that you're also right in the sense they need to show that evidence in franchise cricket and then make their way back to Pakistan cricket, right? But then that goes back to my original point, Jarrod. Who in that Pakistan ecosystem is sitting Babar Azam down and having Mohammad Rizwan down and telling them, you need to improve your strike rate. We can say they need to improve the strike rate, but who's telling them how they can improve it? I think you were once mentioning, I can't remember one of your pods, where Trent Woodhill, I think, was one of the most well-known batting coaches in the world, right? The way he gets players to improve the strike rate isn't, okay, add 75 shots. He's like, what is your best shots? Find ways to play that more often. That's one way to do it. It's like, because
we're doing this shortly with the Nasanka thing of Nasanka hasn't really added shots. What he's done is he's worked out how to hit boundaries from his strengths. So he's now using his heights really well of being like, okay, so if I keep lower, I can pull balls that I wouldn't normally pull, right? And when the ball's a little bit short, instead of playing a half pull, I play a full pull because I've got myself lower in the crease to be able to play that ball from that position. So yeah, no, you're right. We're not expecting them to come in and switch it. We're not expecting them to, muscle balls down the ground. What we are saying, though, is that if you are that good as a batter, you should be able to find other avenues in which to score and rotate the strike and put pressure back on the opposition. And at the moment, we're not seeing any of those things. So I think that's very fair. And as to who they listen, I think, this happens on a lower level to someone like me. Sometimes you end up, I remember the first Ashes I covered was 2009. And if you go back, it's a very reactionary to what the other press was saying, right? And so I got myself into this mindset of like, I'm the truth teller and they're all nonsense and I'm going to do this, right? And someone told me about that and I was like, no, you're wrong. That's not what I do. Go away. And then someone else told me that and I said the same thing. And then I became defiant of all those people who were saying this thing of you've become really, whereas before you were the proactive writer and now you're a reactive writer, right? So you end up like, how many people will have actually told Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan that they're slow? Like, this isn't, newsflash, this is not the first time they've heard it, right? And so what you have to do at a certain point is work out whether what you are doing is still working. Right? And I think for that, that's a really, really important thing going ahead of, is what I'm doing still working? And for that, forget what everyone has ever said to you. You have to be very, very good at self-editing, at understanding your strengths and your weaknesses and everything else, and being able to go through the information in front of you and be like, do you know what? That's fair. Yeah, that was a pretty ordinary ball from an off spinner. And I had clearly decided before the ball was being bowled that I was going to turn it to mid-wicket for one. How does that help put any pressure back on this bowler, right? And that's where the building blocks need to be. So that's one of the hardest things as a professional athlete is, is it the famous, I think it's a famous American football coach who says, the hardest thing in sport is like being at halftime in like a Super Bowl game and realizing everything that you have done to get yourself to that position is wrong, right? It wasn't wrong to get you there, but it's not going to work in the second half. And so you almost have to throw out your entire thing and come. That's what they need to do, because they both would sit there and go, they would say to both of us, we are great players of spin. And we would be like, yes, but you're not getting great results against spin. And that's where they need to get to. And I don't know how easy or hard that is at that level, right? Because as we said before, multiple coaches, multiple everything else. But at a certain point, this is where I think the financial pressure becomes interesting, because I saw it with Shikhar Dhawan, right? I think we saw it with David Miller. We saw it with Shai Hope. We saw it with Lendl Simmons. At a certain point, the financial thing comes in and players start going, ooh, okay, well, turns out I'm not making as much money as I used to make. So maybe I need to go with the times. Because I had conversations with Lendl Simmons about this. Not that we talked very much, and Lendl's a pretty quiet guy and everything. But I tried to have the same conversation with Lendl Simmons, because he would tell me, "Oh, I was the leading run scorer or whatever," and I was like, "Yeah, but I don't know anyone who's looking at that anymore. Like those things are out of date. Like 5 years ago, everyone would be like, "You're great. Everyone wants to be Sean Marsh, right? No one wants to be Sean Marsh anymore." And so that's the thing of, you need the players to kind of come to it from their own. And Robbie talks about this heaps, right? Well, Robbie talks about we're right in that it should be the system, it should be the setup and everything else. But Pakistani fans would be sitting back going, but our system's trash and our setup's temporary. And how would they? So who needs to do this? It's the guys themselves. And they're the only ones, ultimately, they're the only ones who can fix it anyway. But if they're not the ones who actually make this conversation happen, then I don't see what the point of, I just don't think how many tweets are going to win them over, Varun. They have to just come to this internally.
So, Jarrod, to finish the pod off, I'll ask you a very simple question. By the time the World Cup squad is announced, do you think one of them or both of them will be in it?
I mean, it's very hard. We're recording this right after the India-Pakistan game, so we haven't seen Pakistan play the other sides. Mm-hmm. If Pakistan continue to play the same level of cricket against the other sides, which I don't expect them to, and one or both of them are going to come back, aren't they? Yeah. If Pakistan keep getting humped by India, but play pretty good cricket with a young, developing, interesting squad sideways, Hesson keeps his job probably until that World Cup. And if that's the case, I don't think they have time to turn this around. I suppose because there's a PSL just before, there is a bit of a chance, isn't there? There is a slight window that... Oh, no, the PSL's after it this year. They've moved the PSL dates, haven't they, to coincide with the IPL. So... Yes. I don't really see how they have a chance to turn it around then.
So I believe Babar has a BBL contract. But the issue is, if he does do well in the BBL, it's completely different conditions to what he'll face in Sri Lanka.
Also, if you're hiring him for the BBL, aren't you hiring him to be a anchor anyway?
Yeah, well, just for this brand, aren't you?
Maybe. Okay, if you're hiring him for his brand, he can do whatever he wants. But if you're hiring him specifically because you need an anchor, who's he play for? Is it Strikers?
Sydney Sixers, I believe.
Sixers, yeah. If you're hiring him for that role, that becomes a little bit awkward. I'm not saying, look, he's Babar Azam. He could probably go, guys, I'm going to try this. It's not like the Big Bash money's so big. He's like, oh, no, I'll never play in the Big Bash again. Although, if you're a Pakistani player, you don't get IPL money. Big Bash is still good money, right? But yeah, I think there is definitely an element of you've got to think about why you have been hired. Like when I work with franchises, that's kind of what we did. We would say to the player, "Okay, we've got you, and this is why we've got you. This is what we need, right?" And then you take it from there.
I think that's it. So thank you so much for listening up to this point, guys. Bookmark goodareas.co. Everything's there.
Everything's
and we'll
there.
see you for the next time.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Brian Lara used pot plants to work on his placement. John Wright glued his glove to his bat. Sachin Tendulkar dug up practice pitches. Tatenda Taibu cut the top off his bat. Claire Taylor used a hockey grip. Steve Smith was from tennis. Dean Jones would call phantom runs. And Victor Trumper turned the nets into a war zone to survive. The best batters in the world do whatever they have to make runs. We have told their stories in our new book, The Art of Batting.